A British research vessel dropped instruments into the notorious stretch of Atlantic Ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. The region newspapers first called the Devil's Triangle in 1950. And when oceanographers reviewed the data from those synchronized underwater probes, what they discovered wasn't alien technology or supernatural portals. It was something far more terrifying, something that's been sinking ships for centuries. And what marine biologists found thriving in these same deadly waters rewrites everything we thought we knew about one of Earth's most infamous maritime graveyards. If you care about what's really happening in our oceans, and why the Bermuda Triangle isn't the mystery you think it is, share this everywhere. Because what scientists uncovered doesn't just explain decades of disappearances. It reveals an ecosystem so unique that marine biologist Sylvia Earle called it a golden floating rainforest, thriving in the exact location where over 50 ships and 20 aircraft have vanished without a trace. Before we break down the real science behind those disappearances, why the ocean floor in this region is fundamentally different from anywhere else on Earth, and how the same forces destroying ships are protecting one of the planet's most critical marine habitats. Subscribe to this channel for the investigations nobody else will give you. First, you need to understand what the Bermuda Triangle actually is, because the location alone should tell you this was never about aliens. The region is a loosely defined area, roughly 500,000 square miles, bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. It sits directly in Hurricane Alley, where storms converge from the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the open Atlantic. The sea floor drops from shallow reefs to some of the deepest marine trenches in the Atlantic. Strong currents, the Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic Current, the Canary Current, all collide here, creating one of the most volatile maritime environments on the planet. University of Washington oceanographers chose this exact location to study its swirling underwater vortices using a pioneering experiment that deployed 21 synchronized probes. They sent them deep into the ocean and back to the surface in unison. "Nothing like this has ever been done," said Tom Sanford, an oceanographer at the UW's Applied Physics Laboratory. The data revealed massive whirlpools and current systems that change by the hour, making traditional navigation methods almost useless in real-time conditions. Then came the discovery that finally explained the legend. Dr. Simon Boxall, an oceanographer from the University of Southampton, identified the real killer: rogue waves. Not 10-foot swells, not normal storm surge. Walls of water reaching 100 feet high, twice the height of surrounding waves, appearing without warning from directions other than the prevailing wind. These aren't theoretical. Boxall and his team built scale models of ships that vanished in the triangle, including the USS Cyclops, which disappeared in March 1918 with 306 crew members and never sent a single distress signal. The experiments revealed something horrifying. When a rogue wave strikes a large ship, it suspends the vessel between wave peaks, the front supported by one crest, the rear by another, but the middle hanging in open air. Ships with flat bases snap in two. The bigger the ship, the faster it sinks. 2 to 3 minutes from wave strike to total submersion. No time for distress calls, no time for lifeboats, just gone. Boxall explained the meteorological conditions that create these monsters. Storms from the south and north converge with disturbances from Florida. And when waves from different storm systems collide, they add up. A 30-foot wave from one storm meets a 40-foot wave from another, and suddenly you have a 100-foot wall of water that exists for seconds before dispersing. The Bermuda Triangle sits at the perfect convergence point, where Atlantic storms, Caribbean hurricanes, and Gulf weather systems all intersect. But here's the twist nobody anticipated. The same deadly ocean that's been swallowing ships is home to one of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth. And marine biologists are racing to study it before we destroy what we're only beginning to understand. The Bermuda Triangle overlaps almost entirely with the Sargasso Sea, the only sea in the world with no land borders. Instead of coastlines, it's defined by the circular currents that surround it. The Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic Current, the Canary Current, and the North Atlantic Equatorial Current. These currents trap massive floating mats of Sargassum seaweed, brown algae that doesn't anchor to the sea floor but drifts across the surface, creating what researchers call a floating golden rainforest. What scientists found living in and beneath those seaweed mats is staggering. Over 145 invertebrate species and at least 127 species of fish depend on the sargassum for survival. Marine biologists identified 154 different larval fish species using DNA barcoding, far more diversity than anyone expected in open ocean waters. These aren't random fish passing through. They're species that spawn here. Marlins, dolphinfish, flying fish, endangered American eels, and European eels that migrate thousands of miles from rivers and ponds across entire continents to spawn in the Sargasso Sea, then swim back, a journey that can take 25 years. The creatures that live here full-time are even stranger. The Sargassum frogfish, a color-changing, cannibalistic anglerfish that uses prehensile fins to climb through tangled weeds and can leap out of the water onto floating mats to escape predators. The Sargassum pipefish, dozens of species found nowhere else on Earth. Satellite tags revealed porbeagle sharks migrating over 2,000 kilometers from Canadian waters, specifically to give birth in the Sargasso Sea. In 2024, Greenpeace spent 3 weeks aboard the Arctic Sunrise, exploring the Sargasso Sea using environmental DNA sampling and underwater acoustic monitoring. They detected species that shouldn't be there, according to range maps. Pygmy sperm whales, European eels completing their 4,000-mile migration, Sargassum specialist species scientists thought were far rarer than the data now shows. The team captured DNA from fish belonging to 14 different families. They recorded dolphin pods and sperm whale calls echoing through the deep. Then came the discovery that proved just how little we actually know. Using DNA barcoding techniques, researchers found that the Sargasso Sea contains massive populations of SAR11 bacteria, one of the smallest self-replicating cells known to science. Yet it constitutes a major proportion of all marine prokaryotes across the world's oceans. The bacterium Prochlorococcus marinus, though among the tiniest photosynthetic organisms known, is a primary producer in the ocean and drastically impacts the global carbon cycle. Based on oxygen production measurements, the Sargasso Sea may produce 2.2 billion liters of oxygen per hour, making it one of the primary sources of atmospheric oxygen on Earth. That's not folklore. That's measurable biology happening in the exact waters where ships have been disappearing for centuries. And there's one more force at work here that sailors have feared for generations. Something that finally makes sense with modern geology. The Bermuda Triangle sits atop volcanic remnants with unusually high iron content, creating localized magnetic anomalies. Dr. Robbie Smith, a geologist studying Bermuda's volcanic history, confirmed that these iron-rich formations can alter compass readings by 10 degrees or more in certain zones. Before GPS, that was a death sentence. Divers working in specific areas near Bermuda report that compasses show completely different readings depending on which zone they're in. Instruments that should agree suddenly point in opposite directions. Pre-modern sailors navigating by magnetic compass in fog or storms could have been miles off course without knowing it. Christopher Columbus recorded strange compass behavior in his 1492 voyage logs as he passed through the region, but he didn't tell his crew because he feared it would cause panic. Here's where the picture gets devastating. We finally understand what's happening in the Bermuda Triangle. Rogue waves, magnetic anomalies, converging storm systems, treacherous currents. And we're destroying the ecosystem that thrives there before we've finished studying it. The Sargasso Sea has become one of Earth's 5 ocean garbage patches. The same currents that trap floating seaweed also trap plastic waste. Surveys now suggest microplastics may outnumber plankton in parts of the North Atlantic gyre. The creatures that evolved to feed on sargassum-dwelling prey are now ingesting plastic fragments. Heavy shipping traffic plows through delicate mats of seaweed, fragmenting critical habitat. Industrial-scale fishing operations target high-value species like bluefin tuna, disrupting food chains that scientists are only beginning to map. And it gets worse. The Bermuda Triangle legend was only created as a concept in 1952 by writer George X. Sand, who wrote an article for Fate magazine describing mysterious disappearances. Before that, there was no mystery, just a heavily trafficked stretch of ocean with dangerous weather. The 1945 disappearance of Flight 19, 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers, became the origin myth, even though Navy investigators attributed the loss to navigational error and fuel exhaustion. The search and rescue aircraft sent to find them, a PBM Mariner, also vanished. But a tanker reported seeing an explosion, and the Mariner had a documented history of in-flight explosions due to vapor leaks when heavily fueled. The author Larry Cush investigated every claimed disappearance for his 1975 book, The Bermuda Triangle Mystery, Solved, and found that many reports were inaccurate, exaggerated, or unverifiable. Some mysterious disappearances happened hundreds of miles outside the triangle. Others occurred during hurricanes, but were reported as happening in calm weather. Several vessels listed as vanished were later found, just not where people expected. Lloyd's of London, the world's largest insurance market, determined that proportionally, no more ships sink in the Bermuda Triangle than any other part of the ocean. The U.S. Coast Guard stated officially that they've found no evidence of unusual activity in the region, attributing incidents to physical causes: weather, human error, equipment failure. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names doesn't even recognize Bermuda Triangle as an official name. And yet one thing is absolutely certain: the Bermuda Triangle isn't paranormal, but it is dangerous. Rogue waves up to 100 feet tall can form when multiple storm systems converge, snapping ships in half in under 3 minutes. Magnetic anomalies from iron-rich volcanic formations confused pre-GPS navigators, sending them miles off course. Volatile weather, shallow reefs, and treacherous currents make it one of the most challenging areas to navigate on Earth. But the same forces that make this region deadly have also created one of the planet's most critical marine ecosystems. The Sargasso Sea spans 2 million square miles of floating habitat. It produces billions of liters of oxygen per hour. It serves as spawning grounds for endangered species on 3 continents. It contains bacteria that regulate global carbon cycles and support the base of oceanic food chains. Scientists say the Sargasso Sea scores highly on 6 out of 7 ecologically or biologically significant area criteria under international conservation frameworks. The UN High Seas Treaty created a legal mechanism in 2023 to protect marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction, and the Sargasso Sea Commission has been working since 2014 to secure its protection. But plastic pollution is accelerating. Overfishing continues. Climate change is warming waters and altering migration patterns for eels and turtles that depend on this habitat. We solved the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle and discovered something far more valuable than paranormal phenomena underneath. Now we decide whether to protect it or destroy it before we finish understanding what we found. Stay tuned.